You're listening to Campfire Tales, a horror podcast written by Daniel Marq.
House down the street.
I'm Alex Clifton. Hi. The group. Yeah. So, I'm part of a small urban exploration group. Niche hobby, I know, but there's a club for everything out there. Decrepit buildings are just cool, you know? Exploring through a dead mall is a particular sort of feeling, one that's hard to get in everyday life. Sure, it's kind of scary, nerves are in knots the whole journey, but I never regret walking through an abandoned location. The thrill, the anxiety, the feeling of not supposed to be here, that's exactly what we look for. You should give it a try. Or not, since you're a cop. Anyway, getting back to the club. We have a leader, but I can't tell you who it is. Not because I don't want to, but it's because I literally can't. He made sure we knew nothing about him if any of us got into trouble with the cops. Like me right now. He has no name. We just call him Boss. He covered himself in everything I could think of. Hoodies, jackets, boots, gloves, even helmets on a few days. I think he wore multiple layers too. Coats upon coats, jackets on jackets, one sweater over another. He wore ski masks underneath a cap. He was always covered. I mean, hell, the only thing I might know about him is that he's a black man, but I'm not even sure about that since he was most likely wearing brown gloves underneath fingerless ones. Strange guy, but he's an expert in urban exploration. I'm surprised he doesn't have a PhD in it, because every time we visit some new location, it almost always seemed like he'd been there before, or he was otherwise familiar with the place. I guess there's a reason he's the boss. We usually have certain places we like to explore. Random tunnels underground, old war bunkers, abandoned hospitals, abandoned prisons, all that kind of stuff. Houses, however, we never explore for what I think are obvious reasons. They're not big enough and not old enough to be interesting. But hey, if the boss said we're going through a house, we're going through a house. Before we go in, the boss always likes to do briefings. I've always found it interesting that he does this. Some of the other guys don't enjoy it as much, but the whole covert military operation vibe it gives off is something that I find really cool. Listen, there's a good possibility that someone could get lost here, so stick with the group, he began. His voice was deep, calm, and commanding all at the same time. Get lost where? In the 6 rooms of a regular suburban house? Or I would comment on the fact that there's barely 5 people in our group. In and out. Quick trip. We're going to see all the rooms, including the basement, which is connected to a bunch of tunnels underground. There'll be more than enough to explore. Trust me. The boss continued. I mean, I sure as hell hope so. Otherwise we'd have way too much to explore, right? Just remember, stick together. No matter what, stick together. He paused for a moment. If anyone wants to leave, you can do it now. One of the girls in the group left. She didn't seem interested from the start. I think I heard the boss swear underneath his mask, like the number of people affected his ability to do this successfully. The more the merrier, I suppose. Any questions? The boss asked. The room stayed silent. We were all the type of people to follow him anywhere without question. He's been giving orders for me for 4 to 5 months now? He's never been wrong once. Plus, he's just a nice guy. Somewhat stern, but that's only when it comes to safety. Otherwise, he's alright. We drove to the house in a big van that had this old Sunny Side Up logo on the side. Tell people this used to be a food truck, and that it still is if they ask. That was his explanation, even though I've never heard of any place with that name. I knew on the way there that the house was from a rural area because the buildings stopped appearing in the rearview mirror. Instead, they were replaced with fields of tall grass growing out like warped needles. With the buildings in the very distant horizon, the van reached its destination, and we all slowly trickled out of the van. And the first thing my eyes were drawn to was the sign on the side of the narrow dirt path that led to the house. Calvin Residency. I didn't expect all that much from the house, but it still disappointed me a bit. It was smaller than I thought it would be. What used to be sky blue wooden roofs and white walls were now green and mouldy. Streaks of unnatural colour and rotted wood showing where water damage had occurred. So, when we're done sightseeing, the boss said with a chuckle. I looked down from the roof to see Boss, Cleo and Bob there on the porch looking at me, waiting impatiently. I've always liked observing the way buildings die, but I hate it when people have to wait for me, even for a few seconds. It makes me feel like I'm some sort of burden, even though I know I'm not that much of a bother. This feeling was only amplified by looking at Bob and Cleo. The boss seemed amused as I walked hurriedly toward them, but all I could see was Bob and Cleo quietly judging me. They tried to hide it sometimes, but I could always tell that I annoyed them. Bob had those big brown eyebrows that always narrowed at the sight of me. Cleo was far better at hiding her anger towards me. Looking at her, you'd not expect her to be the type to judge. Big glasses, always carrying her sketchbook around, dresses like a 7th grade English teacher. She looked more like the type who'd get bullied. I never know why they hate me, but seeing as this isn't the first time I've accidentally halted their progress, perhaps I'm not worthy of their assistance. It's not my fault I'm so young and inexperienced. Maybe if they had the boss's personality, I might at least pretend I respect them. Maybe I'm rambling, aren't I? Sorry. Getting back to it. The inside of the house looked nothing like the outside. Must have been horrendously maintained on the outside because the house's insides looked as though it had been abandoned yesterday. It looked gorgeous. The first room we walked into was the living room, and it looked grand enough. It had these portraits on the walls, with most of them being family pictures. But there was just one strange picture, though. It was a gingerhead girl who was maybe 13. She was holding a rifle that was far too big for her. The part that unnerved me was the fact that she looked horrified, like she was staring down at a predator and she couldn't move. It's not the sort of thing you'd have hung up on the wall. The room's furniture and even the fireplace looked way too pristine. The cozy warm lights blanketing the room from yellow lanterns on the ceiling. I was sort of surprised walking in, and for a second I was worried that we might have accidentally broken into someone's house. But that feeling very quickly disappeared as Boss walked past me. He doesn't make mistakes. We walked up to the second floor of the house, and I guess we were going to go from top to bottom, concluding with the basement. The stairway was a bit claustrophobic, only big enough for one person to walk on, and even then, my shoulders would scrape the walls on each side. It was just one flight up, thankfully, but the house's architecture was just slightly off. It was too thin and too tall. Just a bit strange, but nothing noticeable. I regret not paying attention to it now. The boss was very insistent that we keep an eye on the person in front of us, especially when walking between rooms, like they'd just disappear or something if we broke line of sight. Either way, everything was going smoothly until I walked into what I assumed was the parents' bedroom. It was a mostly normal-looking room. Wooden closet, bed in the middle, and a picture on the wall that I think was incomplete. It was a portrait of a strange-looking old man without a shirt on, but the entire left half was missing. The portrait was already framed, so I assumed it was intentional. I was observing all the decor in the room, the patterns on the walls and whatnot, when I heard the sound of a doorknob clicking shut behind me. I whipped around to see that the door to the bedroom had been shut. I saw the silhouette of who I assume was Cleo on the other side of the door, and I assumed she had just locked me inside of the room. I ran toward the door almost instinctively. Without thinking, I slammed both hands on the door and yelled, "Hey, what the hell?" I think I heard her respond. I think she sent her usual stutter saying sorry, but it got cut off. It's not like she was disturbed while saying it, but it's as if the sound itself got cut off. Like, imagine teleporting from beside someone to a few meters away. I realized here that I hadn't bothered to try turning the doorknob, assuming it was locked and whatnot. I turned the knob and the door did indeed open, but the hallway outside was empty, devoid of anyone. No Cleo, no Boss, and no Bob either. I assumed they had gone downstairs as one would, and I quickly made my way down. And I was maybe 5 to 6 steps down when I realized something. There were 2 flights of stairs. I'd only walked up 1 flight to get to the 2nd floor. Something wasn't right. I stepped back. I don't know why I subconsciously assumed that the upper floor would be safer, but I was not going to go down a stairway that appeared there a minute ago. It felt like it was luring me somewhere else. Somewhere deeper. I nearly slipped off the stairs there and then. I turned around and saw the massive cupboard that was over to the side was now directly blocking my path up. Then I heard the stairs creak. The stairs, they were being broken. I don't know what or who was doing it, but I was not going to wait around and find out. I tried to push up against it. I thought I was going to die. From what, I don't know, but I was going to die if I couldn't make it past this thing. I tried to break it open by using my shoulder, but it didn't work. I turned back down to the stairs and there was no 2nd flight of stairs. In fact, there was barely any of the 1st flight either. The stairs were bent down the middle before inevitably they cracked into and fell into the black abyss. The stairs beneath me were fucking disappearing. If I didn't find a way to escape, I'd fall into that swirling pit. It looked so hungry and I needed to escape. In a last-ditch attempt, I closed my eyes, opened the cupboard and jumped into it. I expected to bump into the closet wall, a coffin to die in at the very least. But I didn't. I ran as fast as I could. I had my eyes closed, and I could hear the floorboards behind me plummet into that hungry abyss. And then as I opened my eyes, I was met with a face full of dresses, coats and coat hangers. I face-planted through a wooden door and fell onto the floor. I fell from another cupboard into another house. There was a couple on the bed in front of me, and they screamed after they saw me crash land out of their cupboard. The husband approached me, probably to beat me up on intruding when they were getting intimate, but he stopped when I just stayed there on the floor, whimpering. They called the cops, and some guy, Alfred, showed up. He tried to understand what I was saying, but he couldn't. Then again, I don't know what I was telling him either. All he understood was that I needed to get back there. Looking back on it, I don't know why I wanted to go back so badly. I wanted to know if it was real, if Calvin Residency was actually a place. The officer tried to argue, of course. He told me it was late or whatever, and it was. But I had to see it. I think he knew I did. He saw it in my eyes. He sighed and told me that I'd better behave, and he told me to hop in the car. I tried guiding him to the correct place as best I could, but I wasn't paying attention to the roads when the boss drove us there, so we got lost a few times. Eventually, we did make it to the place. The car's headlights lit up, and on the big blue sign it said, Camillo Residency. I was confused for a moment, but this was the place. Yet there was no food truck. There was a perfectly maintained house with all its lights on, and the sound of a kid running around and his parents talking to each other came from the inside. I tried to walk into the house again, but the officer grabbed me by my wrist. "You promised you'd behave," the officer said. I tried to reply, but he made a good point. Disturbing a suburban family this late because some crazy guy was hallucinating was probably not something he wanted to do. He then dropped me off at my house. My mum yelled at me for getting in trouble with the police, but the look on Alfred's face, I think he gets it, and he wouldn't file a report. He told my mother just that, and she calmed down. At least I hoped Alfred could leave it at that, but I guess I was wrong, because here I am. So what happened? Did he file a report that I had somehow snuck into a cupboard when none of the family noticed? Did you arrest one of the group members and they spilled the beans on me? I mean, for the record, I haven't been on any excursions after that. Just living the simple life from now on. I did see Chloe once while we were driving home, and she had a few bruises and a gnarly black eye. I don't know who did that to her, but I hope it wasn't because of me. Either way, I'd like you to know that nothing I did was illegal. If I was high, it wasn't on purpose, and if you want to go arrest anyone, I'm not involved. If you still... Yeah? Yeah.